why would women come to you? Why would black women come to you? And the first hurdle was not being discouraged, being like, okay, well, I want to try it anyway, where I'm around people who were sort of investing themselves and, quite ambitious. When I first got my pension, and I spent a long time in my career not paying into my pension because I just didn't know what it was and how it worked and all of that. And when I finally did, I remember I was a bit strapped for cash. So I called my pensions provider and was asking them to take the money out. The reality is we can't go back and fast forward life. We can't go back and, we can't skip forward. So I do think we need to be comfortable within the season that we are in.
Hi, welcome back everyone. My name's Arlene, host of From Risk to Fruits podcast, and today I'm joined by an inspirational woman who started a business and has been empowering Black women for years now. This is someone who is the founder of Black Girl Finance. She is an author, and we've got her book today, and we'll get into the details. She is also an award-winning financial coach. Welcome to the podcast, Selina.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Brilliant. I'm excited to talk to you. I just feel like you've done so much. I just talked about the LinkedIn introduction, and I know there's a whole host of things that you do and your journey as well. Yeah. So for people that don't know you, do you mind introducing yourself and telling us about your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Selina Flavius. I am the founder of Black Girl Finance, as Arlene has mentioned. We are a financial literacy company, a financial education company, and we also offer financial coaching, so real practical guidance for women. And we have more recently branched into offering regulated financial advice and planning. So we kind of offer the whole remit of tools and solutions for our clients who are predominantly Black women. I'm also a published author, so I wrote a book called Black Girl Finance, Let's Talk Money, which is a really practical personal finance book, but it also has a tilt and it focuses on sort of Black women's experiences managing money. So I wanted to write a personal finance book, but I wanted to give it a little bit more, make it a little bit more interesting. Yes. And I'm a speaker and I'm also a money mentor for a financial advisory business called Women's Wealth. So that's where we are able to offer the financial advice and planning. So I wear kind of many hats at this moment in time.
But ultimately empowering people and giving that financial education.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, brilliant. Maybe if you can take us back to when you were younger and how you grew up and how did that inform the way that you deal with money?
I am from not far from here where we're recording, so in East London. So I grew up in Hackney. I'm one of 5 children. More. So there's 9 of us in total, but the house that I grew up in was with my 5 siblings. And I'm a twin as well, but I grew up with my mum, and she amazing woman, absolutely my idol, and she just worked very, very hard. She's from the Caribbean, from St. Lucia, and came over here when she was like 15 or so. So I grew up, had a really happy childhood. When it came to money, I just saw her working really, really hard. I saw her get on the property ladder. I was very fortunate, could have like some of the school trips. Me and my sister, I should say, me and my twin sister are the youngest out of the 5. So, she worked really hard, was able to sort of give us experiences, give us a good life. But I will say, when it came to there was lots of a bit of scarcity. So I knew that we weren't a wealthy household. And when it came to talking about money and given financial lessons, I was very much taught to save, which is brilliant. We all need to be able to save, some of the difference that we earn. And then she, like I said, I saw her get on the property ladder. So these were things that I wanted to kind of emulate and do. But anything else I was oblivious to. So I often share the story of the fact that when I first got my pension, and I spent a long time in my career not paying into my pension because I just didn't know what it was and how it worked and all of that. And when I finally did, I remember I was a bit strapped for cash. So I called my pensions provider and was asking them to take the money out. And they had to explain, your eyes went wide. But they had to explain to me that actually that's not how pensions worked. So there was a real lack of knowledge in terms of how to do, I guess, the next stage of kind of managing money. So the building wealth, tackling debt, sort of the longer term financial planning. So there was a bit of a gap there. And then there are other experiences that inform what I do as well. So I've had lots of experiences whilst actually, having my business and running my business. But yeah, a bit about my childhood.
Yeah.
I can talk quite a bit, Arlene, so just tell me when to stop.
Brilliant. We're here to learn about you.
Yeah.
Really, it's your platform. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And love that you've got a twin sister as well, and the youngest. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
But in terms of your career, I did read that you were in business development for 15 years before launching Black Girl Finance. So at what moment did you realize that I need to step away from working within businesses and then start my own initiative?
Yeah, so it was around just before lockdown. So 2018, 2019, I'd already had the idea for doing something with Black Girl Finance. So I worked in, business development, which is essentially sales. So for a kind of software and technology company, that was the last company that I worked for. So software as a sales company. And I was just around a lot of ambitious people, which was great. So we would have conversations about like cryptocurrency. I remember a lot of my colleagues were already invested in cryptocurrency before it was, I think in 2020, that's when it
peak crypto.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of my colleagues having conversations about that. I had a colleague who was very much into investing. And I just remember always thinking to myself, I would like to help women to do that. I'd like to invest myself. Didn't know how to do that and how to begin just yet. But the seed was kind of planted in that environment where I'm around people who were sort of investing themselves and, quite ambitious. So, and if I go right the way back, I speak about often the fact that at this moment in time, I'm doing the things that 16-year-old Selina would be really proud of and maybe would have wanted to do if she had known the route, how to do it sooner, if that makes sense. So if anyone has had that kind of career trajectory, or if anyone has some goals that they wanted to do when they were younger and it hasn't happened yet, I would just say, if it's in you, it will come out at some point. You will get there and hopefully go and kind of live your dream. So even writing the book has been, a huge accomplishment. And when I was younger, myself and my cousins and my sister used to write, short stories together. And so when I got the opportunity to write the Black Girl Finance book, that was kind of like a pinch me moment because it was something that I used to like to do when I was younger. And then when it comes to finance as well, I was interested in doing economics at A level, but I decided to go down the science route because in my head I thought that I was a scientist. At some stage I thought it was very analytical, so that's what I was going to do. And actually went and studied kind of forensic science at uni, and then dropped out, and then went and had my career in business development. But the kind of interest of money, finance was there, and it didn't go away. And then in 2020, I should say I'm a mum as well. So I've had a son throughout all of this period of time. And then when he got a bit older, it was kind of like, okay, I can now afford to, whether it's financially, mental capacity wise, focus on things outside of work. So that kind of became Black Girl Finance. That became the book. That became everything that I'm doing now. So it was just kind of the right time to focus on me and my interests outside of my day job, basically.
Yeah. So much there in terms of how other people can be inspired, especially the part that you're a mum. Therefore, a lot of women will feel like, okay, this is now my path. I can't go for that, interest that I had because I'm raising a family. But actually, you can go back to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the idea coming back again. It came when you were a teenager, but then it came back again and you wrote the book.
Yeah.
Isn't that it's so nice that you can fulfill your dreams. It doesn't have to be linear, and it doesn't have to be when you're 25.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm, when did the book come out? The book came out just before I was 40. I may have been like 38 or so.
Yes.
Setting up my business was around the same time as well. So, yeah, and it's been a real blessing. Lots of experiences have come from doing this work, doing this, creating what I've created.
But I'm sure it didn't come easy and without its challenges.
Yeah.
Setting up a business usually is something that it pushes you. Are there any early challenges that you went through that you're like, oh, I'm so glad I overcame that one?
I think the first challenge was when I first had the idea for the business. I remember telling someone, and I was very, very enthusiastic. I was like, yes, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm thinking, and getting pushback on the idea, getting real pushback and being asked, well, why would women come to you? Why would Black women come to you? And the first hurdle was not being discouraged, being like, okay, well, I want to try it anyway. I don't know whether it's going to be a good idea, a bad idea. I don't know whether it's going to be received well. I had no clue, what the response will be. But I decided to just go ahead with this idea that was in my mind and start. And that person who was a bit like, well, why? They ended up being quite a big supporter at the end of the day. So that was good that they came around to it and became a supporter.
Thankfully, you didn't listen.
No, yes.
Because speaking as a Black woman, I first came across your platform, I think it was in 2020, or it was an article maybe, and then it drove me from LinkedIn maybe to your blog. And then I just saw this lovely picture, and you were talking about empowering Black women and just educating them, and this is what you're creating. It wasn't as big as it is now, the community.
Yeah.
But at that point, because I then started Ristifruits in 2020.
Yeah.
And part of it was seeing another Black woman do it, seeing another Black woman spot an issue, spot a gap, and she's doing it. She's out here, she's doing it. So then I was inspired.
It's like a chain reaction, isn't it? Because I was inspired by there's a lady called Emily Billet from Vestpod.
Yes.
So I was inspired by her. She's not a Black woman, but I was really inspired by what she was doing. I was inspired, to host events because I went along to one of her events, and I thought, it'd be great to create a space for us, for Black women. But I was inspired by seeing another woman go ahead and do it. And it's like a chain reaction, isn't it? And we're kind of inspiring each other, which is great.
Yeah, so I think there's a word there for anyone that's thinking about an idea and doubting themselves. The next person's waiting to be inspired by you.
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of when you shared how you started coming into understanding how to deal with money and the challenges, or how you saw it from seeing your mum build, raise a family, first of all, have a property all by herself. And, that's so inspiring because it's hard enough when you're in a partnership, let alone when you're on your own.
Absolutely, yeah.
When you first interacted with money, you mentioned you went to university. Is that the first time you dealt with loads of more?
Yeah, absolutely, because I was getting my student loan. I was a mum then as well, so kind of navigating being I wasn't a single parent. My son's dad has been in his life, and we were together for quite some time before we split up. But so I've always had the support. I've always had family support as well. So I've not been doing it alone. I've had a village essentially throughout my life, which is a privilege. But yeah, I'd say going to university, there was also a period of time. There was a moment. My gran, she's from Barbados, so my gran on my dad's side, she's from Barbados, and she may have given me £2,000 or something like that when she sold up her property in the UK and went back home. So her and her husband, my granddad, they went back home. And so and it was around the similar time. So I remember being quite a young mum, going to uni, working, having student loan, having a bit of money from my gran. And I think in terms of using money and the overdraft, I didn't know what I was doing. So the money that I got from my gran was probably quickly spent. I may have bought a sofa. I may have done something really practical with it. So I may have bought a sofa for the house. And then student loan money, I had some adventures with it. So I had a cousin who was in Thailand. She was teaching English. And I took my son, who was around like 7 at the time. But I took him, we went to Thailand, which is like an amazing memory for us, but it's probably not the best use of student loan money. So I just didn't know what to do, like I mentioned. And probably when I got to university was when I first got into a bit of debt, and that debt sort of followed me for maybe like 10 years. I was in my overdraft forever. And then slowly I got better. So I started to read other people's books, you know, go to webinars about money, really try to educate myself, because there was a moment of lowness, and I do talk about it in the book. And I remember when the book came out, there was a Guardian headline that said, you know, it said something like, young mum used up son's savings, something like that. And I remember feeling really embarrassed, but actually I put it in the book, so I can't really feel embarrassed. I've shared that, but
that's the part that
was the wording that they use. But it was the reality. You know, before I started educating myself, I didn't know how to do. You know, I didn't know how to save. I didn't really, you know how to pay down debt. I wasn't investing. I wasn't in my pension, because I didn't have financial education. You know, I think we live in a privileged time where we can go online and see a lot of information online. We have access. Yeah. So, you know, the first financial advisor that I spoke to, and I wish I'd spoken to them much sooner as well, which is another reason why we wanted to do financial advice and planning, you know, was a Black man. It was Emmanuel Osukwo. I had a bit of a meeting with him. I booked one of his sessions just to figure out, you know, am I doing the right things? Have I got things in place? But it took a long time to get from, you know, kind of a young single mum, figuring life out, realizing that I needed to sort out my finances, and then sort of taking steps to actually sort out my finances. Yeah. So it took a while. And it was finding the right person to speak to about this as well, which is where, you know, we provide access. We make it, you know, we provide kind of culturally competent coaching and financial advice and planning. Yeah.
Which is one of the biggest barriers, I believe. A lot of people will be like, it's not for me because I come from a working class background, or I come from, you know, a Black family that we don't know. And we just think that if you're rich, that's when you go to a financial advisor.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think that is definitely, you know, a lot of people think that they don't have enough money to manage, and, you know, they don't know who to talk to. I do a lot of signposting. I do a lot of, okay, you're thinking about getting on the property ladder, have a word with a broker. They might say it's the right time. They might say, oh no, actually take some time and save up money and go and do that. But it's about understanding what's possible. And I do a lot of kind of like, you know, go and do that. Go and speak to someone. Yes. You know, you'll be fine. But I remember how nervous I used to feel. You know, when I started to, you know, when I got on the property ladder, I did it with not my twin sister, my older sister. So me and my sister got on the property ladder together. But I remember the anxiety feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm going to speak to this person and they've got the, you know, the power to tell me yes or no, or I don't know. You know, I just wasn't used to dealing with financial services, and so it just felt like such a daunting thing to do. And I was doing it with someone. I wasn't doing it by myself. So I think just encouraging to use services, encouraging to get information, see where you're at, and figure out where you are is kind of half of the job.
This is the part of the podcast where we start playing a game, make it a bit fun. So we've got Connect 4 or Jenga. Which one would you like to play?
I think I want to play.
It is never too early to start planning for your retirement, and that's where our sponsor, PensionBee, comes in. PensionBee is on a mission to build pension confidence and create a world where everyone can enjoy a pension. So whether you've moved around jobs a lot and are looking to consolidate your pensions, one thing I've really come to appreciate is how important retirement planning actually is. My parents are now at pension age, and watching them navigate the complex world of pensions, retirement plans has really been eye-opening for me. It's been a real reminder that this stuff doesn't magically arrange itself when it's time to retire. It's never too early to start thinking about your future. So that's where our sponsor, PensionBee, comes in. PensionBee is on a mission to build pension confidence and create a world where everybody can enjoy a happy retirement. So whether you've moved jobs a few times and are looking to consolidate your pension because your pensions are scattered around all over the place, or you're self-employed and need a flexible pension that lets you contribute more when things are going well and less when things aren't, PensionBee really makes it simple. You can bring your pensions together into one easy to manage plan so you can see everything clearly in one place and feel more in control of your future. Don't worry, signing up is really easy. We've put a link in the show notes. It's quick and it's straightforward. So if retirement feels far away for you, trust me, it comes around so much quicker than we think. So take control of your retirement with PensionBee. And just a little reminder, when investing, your capital is at risk.
Connect Four or Jenga? Which one would you like to play?
I think I want to play Jenga.
Okay,
Yes.
brilliant. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question that I'm going to ask is, if someone is at the very beginning of their financial journey, where should they start and what shouldn't they do?
A mindset thing, because I do think we need to give ourselves permission to, navigate our financial lives in the best way that we possibly can. But I do think it can sometimes start from what we tell ourselves. And I say that because I do speak to a lot of people, a lot of women, and sometimes they're doing wonderfully well, but for some reason they feel like they should be doing more, they should be doing better. I've even had it where, they're doing extremely well, worked extremely hard, but there's this sense of, I didn't earn it, I didn't deserve what I've got. So money can be extremely emotional, and there's a whole area of, financial psychology that exists, and, understanding your money mindset and things like that. But I do think number one is give yourself permission to tackle this area of your life, because it's a huge part of our lives. So number one is permission. And then number two, I know that you mentioned what shouldn't you do. And I think you shouldn't avoid it. You shouldn't avoid it. I think we need to sit down, look at the numbers, because if you know what's going on, you can make plans to do something, whether if you look at the numbers and it's good or bad. If you don't know what's going on, then you don't know what step to take to move things forward, to improve or to go for a goal. So yeah, I'd say number one, give yourself permission, and what not to do is don't ignore it. Yeah.
I like that. That's where you start off as well in the book, just explaining what money mindset is.
Yeah.
Do you mind kind of going in a little bit deeper on what that means?
It's a journey that I've had to go on myself. I think it's really easy with sometimes the backgrounds that we come from, and we're not a monolith. We don't all have the same backgrounds. We may all be, we might be black women, but we may have, be from different countries, different cultures, different practices. It's really important to say that. I know that for myself, I was avoiding, I was ignoring, and I had to hit a bit of a rock bottom, a bit of a low point, where I couldn't ignore it anymore, and I had to actually deal with it. And I do think once we give ourselves permission to deal with whatever the issue is, financially or otherwise, in this case we're talking about financially, I think we feel better. It takes the weight off. I know how different I felt when I stopped avoiding and started dealing with, i.e., the debts I mentioned, dealing with the debt collection agencies, setting up a repayment plan, because that was sorted all of a sudden. It wasn't like an ongoing issue. I'm waking up every single day.
As big of a deal as you made out to be.
Absolutely. Yeah, stressing about it, feeling like it's the end of the world. And, I speak to a lot of women in a lot of different positions. So I speak to women who have been through absolute, the worst financially. And I speak to women who are again, doing really well on paper. It looks really good, but there's something there stopping them from acknowledging that they're doing well. And I do think money mindset, I don't know, you asked me to go into it a bit more, and I've gone on a bit of a tangent, but there are different kind of money mindsets that we have. Some of us are, and it depends on kind of what template you use. There's different templates. So for our financial advice clients, we use something called Habitudes, which looks at habits and attitudes when it comes to finances. And then I think for Black Girl Finance, and potentially in the book, I more talk about money scripts. So it could be that you are status, so whatever money you earn, it kind of it kind of represents you. So if you've got a lot of money, then you feel really great. And when you don't have a lot of money, if you're struggling, then you feel really, poor and, in a negative state. What else? There's money status. There is money vigilance. So being really, really on top of your finances, which is good, but not being able to enjoy it. So being really, really... and I was having a conversation with someone recently, and when they said the word, I want to be able to enjoy, I was like, yes. And I was like, so then that's what you need to focus on, enjoying the hard work, enjoying what you're creating for yourself. And then I think there's a couple of more money mindsets, but I think it's really important to understand what your kind of money mindset is. There's lots of exercises that you can do online. Like I mentioned, you can look up money script, you can look up money vigilance, and just test and just see if it makes sense. See if it explains your behaviors when it comes to money.
I mean, when you were explaining the one around kind of your identity, it reminded me of my late 20s to early 30s, where I used that money, right, and the fact that I was doing quite well as an accountant, to say, okay, this is the thing that I've done, where my friends are getting married, having children. So then I could be like, okay, so this is the thing that I would like people to focus on. So that I got the Mercedes. I was like, look at my property. It was all about that. I'll talk about my property so much because I just felt like then at least I can show that this is my status, where so I'm not being left behind. So it definitely is something where I'm spending a lot now. I'm not investing, am I? Because I want to show where I'm at. So it's very important for people to do that kind of mindset exercise you mentioned.
Definitely. And I think for women, there's a lot of pressure, have children, don't have children, invest, don't invest. There's so many messages for towards women, and I think it's about getting that foundational understanding so that you can understand, does this make me happy? Is this what I've chosen for myself, or is this something that I've kind of fallen into or fell into, and I'm just continuing on with it? Because you can have the stuff and you can be perfectly happy with it, but at the same time, like you said, are you also building? Are you also building wealth at the same time? And if it's so that others can look and feel proud of you, but you don't feel proud of you, then there's it's probably not a good thing. It's not a good. If your validation comes from external, it's probably not the best.
Hey, let's get back.
Okay,
your go. Yes. Oh yeah.
Oh, on top. I think yes. Never played Jenga before.
It's already wobbly.
No.
Okay, brilliant. So there are some key themes that we've got in your book and that I've heard you talk about as well, especially at events, in terms of emergency funds, saving and investing. I think a lot of people get confused about which one's which and where to start from. So if I was a beginner, which one should I focus on first? So I mentioned emergency funds, savings and investing.
I think for me, I want my clients to be financially resilient. I want them to be financially resilient, financially stable. It's the boring stuff. It's the foundational stuff. So it would be working out how much you need for an emergency fund. So it's money that you can get to quickly in an emergency if something happens. So for example, I drove here today. If suddenly my tire burst and I needed to change it, there's money put aside so I can deal with that emergency. There's no waiting. I don't have to wait a few days to get the money. It's not being invested somewhere so that, you know, if I need it straight away today or yesterday, it was all about cryptocurrency being low. If that was all of that I had, and I needed to cash it out and wait days to get it. So an emergency fund is there for if something goes wrong, you know, your boiler breaks down, with our community, you might need to fly back home because something's happened back home. You might need to help someone with some money issues, because, you know, that's what we do. It's that kind of emergency cash that's there at the ready. It's not invested. It's, you know, there for you to access in an emergency. So that's your emergency fund. And I think that's a good place to start. And the reason why it's a good place to start is because if you know that you've got some money put aside for the worst, you've got some other things in place. So, you know, if you are working, single parent maybe, or you're the only one in your household working, making sure you've got things such as, you know, income protection in place or understanding what your workplace offers. I think that is a good thing if you were to become unwell and unable to work. So again, that's a part of making yourself financially kind of resilient as well. So you've got your emergency fund and you may have some type of insurance or whatever's offered through work, understanding what that is and understanding how long you will be okay for. So I think that's kind of like the baseline of kind of getting going. The reason being is because if you know that you've got these things in place, you're more likely to then decide to build wealth. You're more likely to then take the leap to, you know, go for that other job or you know, retrain. You know, you're more likely to have the financial space and also the mental headspace to do something else if you should choose to, whether that is invest, whether that is to retrain, whether that is to go and do something else. I think having a cushion allows you to then do something else. I think a lot of us don't have that cushion, and it just means that we are stuck in a bit of a cycle, basically.
So true, so true. And when you mentioned understanding your workplace benefits, that's usually something that people feel like, oh, that's the boring, you know, when you go on the internet.
Yeah. You go onto the portal and you're like, what does this mean? But I do think it's key, because if there's anything that could knock your financial resilience, you want to know about it and you want to mitigate that.
Thank you. We'll go again.
Okay, yeah.
That one was risky. Oh, you left a little bit of a trap for me there.
That was so jammy.
There's no rules, right? Like how far up?
No, I think you can go anywhere. Oh my gosh, I don't know how you got away with that. I don't know how you did that. I'm impressed.
I don't, because I'm like, calm down. Okay, cool. It's getting interesting. You must have come across, and maybe also felt like at some stage, but you must have come across some people that have said that I know what I should do roughly because I've heard this, but I just don't do it. What would you say to people that are in that situation?
Yeah, I think we've all got a to-do list of financial things that we should do, myself included. I'm guilty as charged. I think it's just human nature. By the way, yeah, I think it's human nature. But I don't know. I think so. I'm going to be doing some work for an organisation where it is kind of body doubling. So just and it's one of the things that we did last year for our Black Girl Finance community, which was just set a day where we'd all come together on Zoom and just do a finance task. So I think that can be good. So pairing up with, you know, friends, family, and just saying, you know, this is the day where we're going to tackle that thing, is a way to get going. And I do think we prioritise what's important to us, don't we? So I think sometimes it's important to take stock to actually stop and take stock. So, have a moment of just stopping and just figuring out what's important to you. Because sometimes we can just be so busy. We're dealing with just day-to-day work. Then it might be family stuff, and it might be, friend stuff. It could be anything. But I do think having a moment to stop and decide, okay, what am I prioritizing?
Yes.
And maybe thinking about, it's the idea of like channeling your money into the things that you value the most, but you have to take the time to stop and actually figure out, okay, what is it that I value the most? So when I was, in my late 20s, coming into my 30s, I suddenly thought to myself, I need to think about my financial future. I need to, get this debt cleared up, and I need to start, investing. I want to start doing that. It gave me the opportunities that I've got now. If I didn't start saving money or start investing, I wouldn't have had the money. If I'd just continued what I was doing in my 20s, I wouldn't have had the money to put aside to do an ebook course and then create the book, the foundations of the book, and then get an offer from a publisher. That wouldn't have happened. And I also wouldn't have probably started Black Girl Finance, because I did a web design course.
Okay.
So I went away. I was like, okay, I'm interested in tech. And it just gave me the confidence to go online and build the website, which is the website. It probably needs updating now, but it's the website that I use to this day.
Yeah.
But doing the web design course gave me the confidence to then be like, okay, so this is going to be my front page. This is going to be where I'm going to display my book for people to read, where people can book themselves in to talk to me. So I do think, what are we valuing? So I, and as well as, valuing putting time for myself to do the things that I was interested in instead of just work, I was also able to do the same for my finances, to start investing regularly, little and often, and kind of get going. It's been a journey. But I do think really sitting down and thinking about what is it that I value? What do I want to spend my money on?
Yeah.
If it's not this, then what is it? And just channeling your money that way.
That was the nicest way of saying, if it's important to you, do it.
That's a nice way of saying it. Yeah.
Honestly, because that's the only way to get it done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, brilliant. I think let's do another round, and then I'll grab the book.
Okay.
Oh. That means I need to go. Okay. Wow. Actually, before I get into the book, you've around business and visibility and around leadership, because you've got a team, and I have to say the community that you've built, because I'm in your WhatsApp group.
Oh yeah, amazing.
And it just feels like I'm seen, heard, important in.
I'm so glad to hear that feedback.
There's so many women in there, but each time if I send a message in there, either yourself or someone else who actually respond, it doesn't feel like a void like other community groups.
Yeah.
And even there was the festival, I can't remember which year it was, but it was at a university. And the feeling there as well, and the team around you that made us all feel welcome and understand the day as well. And just kind of, it was like, this is for us.
Yes.
Is how I felt. And with that comes with leadership and vision.
Yes.
So as a businesswoman now, I just wanted to kind of learn from you how you've been gaining the skills to be able to grow a business.
I don't think that anything that we do is for nothing. And I'll explain. So I do feel like there are transferable skills. So I would be lying if I said that, my corporate jobs that I had before doesn't play an influence. I feel like I use all of those skills every single day. And I think when I was going through my journey of being in the company, because the last company I was working for, I was there for like 8 years, and that company transitioned and changed. So that company went from a more or less a startup company. I think I was maybe employee number 50 or something like that. So it was quite new and
Yeah,
unique.
it's still
So
small.
it would be, yes, I was in the kind of business development role, the sales role, but if there was some sort of IT crash, we'd all have to jump on the phone lines and speak to clients and customers and reassure them. We had to do some kind of HTML coding, and that company ended up being bought out. So when that company ended up being bought out, we then had new sort of products and services that we could offer to clients. So it was a very dynamic place. And by the end of it, I started off doing kind of maybe like sales on the phones. And by the end of it, I was going out and presenting to clients and people and, face to face. And I think those are the skills that I use now. So to network, to be able to confidently tell people about what we do, why we do it. So I do feel like our experiences aren't wasted. So, I think, if you are thinking about entering business, think about the transferable skills that you have, think about what it is that you can take that you're really good at, that you've learned from elsewhere, and think about how you can utilize that.
You really aren't.
Okay.
So you've answered it in terms of the skills that you have had from your experience before.
Yeah.
They're now kind of being transferred into you running your business.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then setting the culture, maybe this is part 2 of the question, setting the culture for your business. How do you do that?
So I think, getting in really good people. So I love everyone that's come through the doors, working for Black Girl Finance. And that took time. There was a kind of like a build up to get into that place. And, I didn't realize how valuable that was. I ended up in probably like year 3 of having my business going through bereavement. So when I went through bereavement, my team were the ones that were like, okay, Selina, how can I help? How, what can I do more of? Like, they were brilliant. And I'm just so grateful for them, because I don't think the business would still exist if it wasn't for them offering to step up, do more, manage things like the WhatsApp group. And so I do think we're very lucky in that we've got on really good people on board. And then also when we do the event as well, they represent us, they represent the brand, they care about what they're doing. So they do it well. So I think, I don't know if I can take credit. I think I've just been really fortunate to have really conscientious women on board who like the brand. And I try and, I'm not just the face of the brand. There are my colleagues who go out. I encourage them to go out and do talks, be visible. If I can't do an opportunity, I'll offer it to them as well. So I've had colleagues who have kind of written for articles in magazines. I've had colleagues go out and do events as well. So it's a real team effort, and I think they're able to kind of support the brand and want to represent it wherever they are. So I think to hear you say that it felt good, you felt seen, you felt taken care of. That's what we want to do. That's what we want you to feel. Yeah.
Okay.
Is it my turn?
It's yours.
I look away. I'm like, oh, it's not my turn.
How high can we build it? Oh no, Selina. Oh my
I
God.
did that.
Okay.
It's okay. Just be confident. Just be confident.
There's a part in the book that I just wanted to say, because I was like, oh, I love this sentence. And it's in the opening where you say, I want to empower the Black girl finance community and give them the confidence to take control of their finances and their futures. And how you're just starting off there with I want to empower others.
Yeah.
Everything you've said today has been more about what you're giving to others.
Yeah.
It hasn't been like what you're gaining from it.
Okay.
But in the most positive way. And I feel like more business owners should be like that. It's like, what's your impact on other people? So I was like, oh, I absolutely love this. I want to talk about it, and also to talk about the book and the process of writing the book.
Oh, yes.
How was it? Because thank you for sharing earlier that you used to write short stories with your siblings and your cousins, and you mentioned because you've written writing on the blog and you had a short paper, but how did this come about for anyone who's an aspiring author?
Okay, so my journey, I feel like my journey is quite unique, because when I created Black Girl Finance, on the to-do list was to write a book. I didn't know how. I didn't know any authors. I didn't know any writers. But I really wanted to write a book because I think I noticed the gap in the market, in that I was a massive consumer of personal finance books at that stage, but they were either written by non-Black people, non-women, and I think by the time I had the idea to write the book, there were lots of books on the market, but not by Black authors in the UK, Black female authors in the UK. So I was really like, okay, I'm consuming all of this content, but it doesn't feel culturally relevant. It doesn't feel like it's for someone who may have, immigrant parents, who may be the first to go to university, who may be the first to, maybe earning more than their parents, and need to kind of navigate that. The sending money back home, that kind of pressure.
There's a part that sorry to interrupt you. There's a part that in the book as well that I was like, I feel seen, where you were explaining like within the community, money is given to a specific person, and then
do the partner, or I think it's called a susu
round. In Zimbabwe we call it like a round. But
I don't think that's something that you would see in a book about money authored by an English person. I don't think it is.
I haven't seen it.
But that was the experience. That was the experience that I saw growing up with my mum, and I think that has to do with being excluded from financial services. Being discriminated against, if we're being totally honest. So they had to figure out a system for themselves. So I wanted to share our experiences. And also in the book there are case studies, so women that I worked with, so the very early women, and bless them, they allow me to share their stories, the very first women that I worked with doing coaching, so their experiences as well as my own, and I share about my mum and all of that. But I want it to be a very empowering space for women that look like me. And I don't know, we can debate whether or not it's a positive thing. I've been asked, is it a positive thing? Kind of focusing on a particular niche. We're in 2026 now, and I think with everything that's going on in the world, like, we need to take care of our finances, because no one is coming to save us. No one is coming to help us. I think DE&I is being reversed, if we're being totally honest. So
where we were saying it's very important, it can easily be reversed. Therefore, it's invalidating the fact that it's a problem in the first place, where we know it is. So if we don't have people speaking about it, then it can just get wiped off the to-do list.
To do it.
Yeah.
You have to take care of your finances.
So yes, I'm glad you do have a niche.
Yes. Yeah. And it's been a blessing. It's been a blessing over the last few years. It's very clear, who I support, who the platform's for. And it's not to say, and if you're part of the WhatsApp group, you will see it's open for everyone. We don't ever turn anyone away, but we are just champions for Black women. I forget that we're playing the game. I'm just talking. Go.
Selina. Why? Are you a professional?
Then they have this games night. I told you. It's the games night. I really wanted to just scream. I can't believe that. Wow. Okay.
Pretty much. Thank you so much for sharing a lot of the advice about your journey and about what inspired you, because that has inspired myself and it's inspiring others. So I'm just going to ask kind of closing questions, which are like maybe practical stuff, like quick, kind of this is what you can go ahead and do.
Okay, I'll try and be quick.
Let's call it a fire up.
Yeah, okay.
What are 3 financial habits you believe can change someone's life over time?
I think sitting down, knowing your numbers, so understanding, what's the difference between the income that you have coming in and how much you are currently spending. What's that gap? Can you use that gap to build wealth, to, I don't know, just enjoy life, get off that hamster wheel, get off from paying, sort of living paycheck to paycheck. So I think that would be number 1. So look at the numbers. Number 2, what do you value? And put your money towards what you value. And then number 3, something really practical. If you do have debts, pay them off. Try and pay them off. Create a strategy, create a plan that's eaten into your disposable income. And I always say to my clients who do have debt that once that, credit card bill is paid off, that money can then be channeled into your investments. That can be channeled into your holiday fund. It can be channeled into your, take the kids away for a break fund. Whatever it is that you value, that money can be put to work in that way.
If someone feels behind financially, what would you want them to remember today?
No one is behind financially, in life, in your career. I feel like we are where we're supposed to be. Everything happens for a reason. Everything happens in its own time. And they are very cliche lines. But, the reality is we can't go back and fast forward life. We can't go back and, we can't skip forward. So I do think we need to be comfortable within the season that we are in. My own experience of life is that I've created Black Girl Finance and I've experienced kind of bereavement. It's meant that I'm not, if I think about it in, I'm not as far ahead as I should be, but I was dealing with life and grief and bereavement, and that's perfectly okay. So I would say we are where we are. We learn the lessons when we're supposed to learn the lessons, and we do the things when we're supposed to do them. So you're not behind financially. If you're interested, today is the day that you can start to do something different.
What does financially thriving truly mean to you?
To me, so within my own personal life, so I'm in my 40s now, and I think about my my career. So I feel like what I'm doing now, moving into financial advice and planning, it may be, I don't know, I might change my mind in 10 years time, but I feel like I see it as kind of the last thing that I do career-wise. So I just want to perfect that. So financially thriving means having, a really great sort of advisory business. Nice. Yeah. And supporting, my clients. So I'm on a journey through that, studying, doing all sorts to make that happen. Yeah. And then with that will come, financial rewards. So I think for me, at the moment, I'm in such a season of kind of career progression and transition. I think once that's done, I can start to then think, okay, well, actually, this will mean X, Y, Z financially. Yeah. So I'm in a transitional season at the moment. So, but financially thriving, I think it may look different once I get to where I'm going, if that makes sense. So
it's true. All the time when you reach a goal, then you're like, okay, what's the next one? But yeah. I'm hearing business stability and the growth of the business, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's it right now, at this moment in time. Yeah.
Please.
Oh,
I wanted to leave it.
No. I wanted to put it.
That was fun. I've never done a podcast and played a game before. It takes a lot of
mental, and you're in and then you're out.
Yeah, for me.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm not competitive, but okay, thank you. I'll accept it. I might go home and tell people, I won the Jenga today.
What did you do?
Competitive. No, yeah.
I have loved our conversation.
Same.
How can people find out more about what you're doing, follow your work, and support you?
Yeah, so we have our website. It's www.blackgirlfinance.co.uk. We're also on Instagram, which is Black Girl Finance UK, and you can Google me. So it's Selina Flavius, and all of the stuff that I do should come up. So
Including
including the book, yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been really, really fun. Yeah.
That is all for us today, guys. Join us next week for some more seeds to sow. And please remember to support us by following and leave a rating on our show on whichever platform you're listening to us from. To those watching on YouTube, please leave a like and a subscribe to our channel. All of your support goes a long way. Thank you so much for joining us today. And remember, keep shining.